Just seeing your resume, you've been successful at a variety of different churches. What made you decide to come to Wayne Presbyterian when you're already at a church and you're enjoying it and you've been there a bunch of years?
This process of coming to Wayne was different than everywhere else, because every other shift I made along the way, I was really thinking about what was next. Where was I going to go? As we were going through the interview process, I kept seeing and thinking about all the opportunity here at Wayne and all the possibilities. And the other thing is, part of my discernment process was I'd been in Ambler for almost 14 years.
Wow.
And one of the things that I kept thinking was, I got to a point in my time there where I realized I either had to kind of reinvent my ministry there and start over and kind of double down for another season, or think about what's next. Right. And in that process and in the conversation with Wayne, it just kept becoming more and more clear that I think that God's kind of put this opportunity in front of us because it's what's next. And I'm really excited about the opportunity here at Wayne.
Yeah, it sounds like you needed a challenge, whether it came internally through recreating the existing church you had or starting somewhere else.
That's exactly right. I actually had a conversation with my wife, Jennifer, and I said, she said, why would you go? Mm-hmm. And I said, I feel like I need to have a new challenge and something that's different, because, in some ways I felt like I could have coasted to the end, and I knew I didn't want to do that.
In terms of your style, you go to different churches, you have different roles, but style tends to be part of who you are.
Right.
What is your management style? Or leadership style, maybe?
Yeah, my leadership style, I would kind of describe it in a couple different ways. Number one, I want you to know I have an open door. I'm almost always interruptible, just because I want to know kind of the pulse of what's going on in the office and what's going on at church and where things stand. Another part of my leadership style is it's very relational, that I think so much of what we do at church grows out of our relationships with God and with each other. And our relationships with each other reflect on our relationship with God, and our relationship with God reflects on our relationship with other people. And that's not just within the congregation. I think it also goes to our ministry outside the congregation. I've discovered that when you ask what we learn, you will get to whether something worked or didn't work, but it helps you to get to that answer in a way that the answer is palatable and you can go in a new direction. Because the question after what did I learn is what's next. The question of whether it worked or not is, are we going to do the same thing again? Right. And I think that different way of questioning helps us think about what's next rather than, are we going to repeat what we did before?
What can we expect from you both as a manager and as a minister?
I think, in some ways, although they're different roles, there is a lot of similarity between them. My role as both a pastor and also as a manager does begin with relationships, that, it's building healthy relationships within the staff so that we also, as a staff, model healthy work life and healthy relationships with each other with an openness and an honesty. And, one of the things when I was leaving in Ambler, they had this dinner where they got together and some people got up and said some things about me. And the thing that was the most meaningful and most powerful to me was somebody who I've worked with on a lot of things. And he said, the person you see in the pulpit is the person you meet on the street. And to me, that was really not only moving, but important for me that people see that I really try to be authentic in both those roles. One of the things I think I want people to know is I really love hearing and knowing people's stories. That to me, that's the heart of relationship. It's heart of being a pastor, is knowing people's stories and people knowing your story as well. And one of the things I love most about being a pastor is you have the privilege of being and hearing part of people's stories in their lives in such a way that you're able then to make sense of where God is in the midst of all of our stories. So one of the things I'm most looking forward to at Wayne is hearing stories from people, not just about church, but about life and what matters and what motivates people and what makes people passionate about what they do.
I guess if you want to meet somebody where they are, you really have to know who they are.
Yeah, exactly.
And who they are is from their stories.
Exactly. And our stories shape us. And the other thing about stories is we also have this opportunity to reframe our stories. And when we tell it to somebody else, we tell it slightly differently, but we also get to hear reflections on our story. And sometimes it helps us kind of reframe where we're coming from. And especially I think in light of the work we do at church, which is telling stories about what God's doing in our lives and in our world, it helps us to reframe sometimes our own stories so we can hear God's grace that runs through it. Another thing that matters to me is hearing people's perspectives. I often have benefited most from hearing people that I first believed I didn't agree with. When I hear their perspective and take it in and listen, then it can help you consider why someone's coming from where they're coming from, how they arrive at a different conclusion. And I found many times it actually changes my perspective and changes my approach. Another thing I've learned as a leader is the best things that we do and the best things I've done as a pastor are not the things that I've decided, but instead they're the things that we as a community decide together are most important. Now, I think part of the leadership role of that is helping us kind of discern and distill what that is, and being sometimes the person behind it that drives that forward, but recognizing that the best things we do are the things we're going to do together.
You also said you felt like you wanted to spend your first year, give or take, here, hearing the stories and learning about the church. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important for me to know who we are, for me to know what really matters to us, because what matters to us in the past and what we see as kind of our foundational DNA of our congregation is not going to change. And it's not my goal to change that. It's actually my goal for us to live into it more fully. You know, one of the things I really want to see happen is I want to see this congregation be at the heart of the Wayne community. You know, I think that is part of my role. Part of my role is being in town and being known. You know, one of the things that was fun about being an Ambler, like Wayne, it has it downtown. Mm-hmm. I went into restaurants and all the restaurant owners knew me. Some of the servers knew me. You know, I knew people there and developed connections with people that not only as a person, but also as a representative of our congregation. And people knew that our congregation cares about our community. And I know that this congregation cares about the community. And that's one of those things I want to help us to live into more fully.
And they knew that because they knew you. And they saw how you acted towards people, and you acted in a Christian way, in a caring, compassionate way.
Yeah, they knew me, and they knew other people from our church, you know, because we would go and do things together right in the middle of our community.